Welcome to India Business Insights. Today we present to you a video on a widely discussed topic in the current times, moonlighting. Moonlighting is a situation in which an employee that is engaged in full-time work with an organization secretly opts for another part-time job or multiple other assignments outside his organization. This is often done without informing the primary employer. Freelancing is common for many employees, especially with the option of working from home. The employers are seeing it as a complete violation of integrity in its deepest form. In the current times, many incidents on moonlighting have come to surface, especially in the IT sector. In September, Wipro fired 300 employees for engaging in moonlighting. The chairman said that the company has no place for employees who are working for the rivals while being on the payroll of Wipro. Recently, IBM India has sent a strong message to its employees warning against moonlighting without following due process. The note states, "At IBM, our stance has always been clear. We encourage every IBMer to bring their whole selves to work. Your passion, be it art, dance, or music, is celebrated here. And in that spirit, we'd love to see you pursue your interests. However, if you advance a personal interest, whether directly or indirectly at the expense of IBM's interest, it is treated as a serious conflict of interest and a violation of trust." It is seen that employees usually indulge in moonlighting for increasing their earnings. We are always advised to have multiple sources of income. For most, it is investment, but for some, it is a second job or a small business on the side. But it is not always about earning a few extra bucks. Moonlighting is also seen where people are planning a change in their career stream. People take up a temporary part-time job for gaining experience in the new field and getting used to the new job. IT sector employees mostly take up freelance work on the side in order to improve skills and gain experience in an associated field that they are not working in during their regular work. Some also take up a second job to follow their passion, like playing an instrument or painting, though such a part-time assignment might not be considered totally unethical. What governs moonlighting in India? In majority of the industries, there are no laws that govern moonlighting. While many of the acts do suggest that employees are expected to work for a single employer, for most industries and particularly white-collar employees, it is the employment contract alone that deals with this situation. Infosys had recently warned its employees by highlighting that they must look at their employment contracts before taking up a second job. This is because of the presence of non-compete clause in the contract for employment. The non-compete clause in a contract specifying that an employee must not enter into competition with an employer after the employment period is over. Section 27 of the Indian Contract Act 1872 though provides that agreements in restraint of trade shall be void. In Niranjan Shankar versus Century Spinning and Manufacturing Company Limited, 1967, the Honorable Supreme Court observes that restraints or negative covenants in the appointment or contracts may be valid if they are reasonable. The Apex Court upheld the non-compete clause of an employment contract, thereby preventing an employee from joining their employer's competitor during the term of the employment contract. However, such restraint or negative covenant shall not be harsh or one-sided. The Madras High Court in Government of Tamil Nadu versus Tamil Nadu Race Course General Employees Union 1993 observed that dual employment will be permitted if there is no prohibition in the employment contract or if the employer consents. Thus, in order to avoid indulgence in moonlighting by an employee, the contract of employment must be examined. Apart from this clause, there are some legislations that provide for prohibition of dual employment. Section 65 of Bombay Shops and Establishment Act 1948. Restriction on double employment on a holiday or during leave. No employee shall work in any establishment, nor shall any employer knowingly permit an employee to work in any establishment on a day on which the employee is given a holiday or is on leave in accordance to the provisions of this Act. Section 9, Delhi Shops and Establishment Act 1954. Restriction on double employment. No person shall work about the business of an establishment or two or more establishments or an establishment and a factory in excess of the period during which he may be lawfully employed during this Act. Section 60, Factories Act 1948. Restriction on double employment. No adult worker shall be required or allowed to work in any factory on any day on which he has already been working in any other factory, save in such circumstances as may be prescribed. Para 8 to Schedule 1B, Industrial Employment Standing Orders, Central Rule 1946, Exclusive Service. A workman shall not at any time work against the interest of the industrial establishment in which he is employed and shall not take any employment in addition to his job in the establishment which may adversely affect the interest of his employer. In Gulbahar versus Presiding Officer Industrial Tribunal 2016, the Punjab and Haryana High Court upheld the termination order passed by the management of an organization against the petitioner who was a driver in the organization and who was at the same time also engaged in dual duty with another employer. Primary concerns about moonlighting. There are many issues associated with moonlighting. RDBC 2019 concluded in their study that moonlighting promotes disloyal and discontent workforce, promotes leisurely attitude towards job, inefficient leadership, and ineffective organizational policies. Moonlighting leads to low productivity amongst the employees. Since they are indulging in two jobs, they find it difficult to balance between the two. It is also seen that they lack focus on the primary job. Having a second job leads to decrease in productivity, which further leads to incomplete tasks. Also, moonlighting in the same sector, whether it's with a rival or starting one's own venture similar to the current job, raises concern of business privacy and competitive threats. Conflict of interest is likely to arise in such situations. The employee may also use physical and intellectual resources that are available in the regular job to fulfill the commitments of the second job. These should be considered as a breach of trust. Situations where secondary jobs may be permissible. While most top-tier companies are against moonlighting, some companies, especially mid-tier IT companies and startups, are of the opinion that shall be allowed as long as the intellectual property of the company is not compromised. Companies are now planning to tweak the employment contracts to allow their employees to work a second job in startups and other places on non-competing assignments. Moonlighting helps employees to earn more income and in turn decreases the financial burden on the organization. Also, having additional job profile helps the employee increase their business network, which can benefit the principal employer as well. Moonlighting could be a way for employees to gain and upgrade their skills, which can be applied at their primary job. So, an employer is benefited with the skilled employee. It is, however, clear that a second job should happen only with the consent of the employer. How companies are dealing with moonlighting. Sacking of all employees who engage in moonlighting may not be the right solution. Therefore, the companies now need to formulate policies for regulating employees taking up secondary jobs or even unpaid engagements. The former director of Infosys, Mohandas Pai, does not consider moonlighting as cheating. He said, "Employment is a contract between an employer who pays me for working for them for n number of hours a day. Now, what I do after that time is my freedom. I can do what I want." Many firms also believe that as long as there is transparency and employees are not working in a rival company, moonlighting can be permitted. CEO of Tech Mahindra also does not see moonlighting as an unethical practice. While there are these opinions to support employees taking up secondary employment, most primary employers think that the employer is right to expect an employee to be fully present in the time that he spends with them. Most employers think that a person who spends many hours with the secondary employer will come to the primary job sleep deprived and tired. API infrastructure startup M2P FinTech said moonlighting is a reality today, and we need to understand the need of the employees and allow them to pursue this idea for a stable income. Swiggy, the food delivery startup, has announced an industry-first policy of allowing its employees to take up projects outside their regular employment during hours away from work based on internal approvals. The policy prescribes guidelines that employees must adhere to while pursuing moonlighting projects. Projects that pose a high risk of conflict of interest or interference with the employee's duty to Swiggy are subject to an approval process. It appears that many industry leaders are also not clear about what moonlighting is and how is it different from employees taking up small gigs and are confusing one for the other. While an employee follows a certain prescribed guidelines regarding the nature of secondary employment, time commitments, etc., and seeks approval, then it is not moonlighting any longer. In conclusion, job satisfaction and monetary benefits can avoid moonlighting. Employer can provide monetary as well as non-monetary benefits to motivate the employees and avoid moonlighting. The need of each and every employee is to be understood, and further it is to be understood as to what is the reason behind moonlighting for these employees. Once we have the answers, we need to address them. While the onus of preventing moonlighting has often been put on employees, it is important that the employers also clearly told that any employment without the consent of the primary employer or in contravention of the terms of the employment is a serious breach of trust. The prevailing opinion is that moonlighting, especially in the IT industry, is the only way for growing. As long as the employee is not working in a competing industry, maintaining confidentiality and disclosure and proper consent is obtained, then a secondary job may be permissible. That is it for today. Let us know what are your opinions on moonlighting in the comment section below. For more such videos, like, share and subscribe to India Business Insights.